everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews and Merry Christmas. Today we are talking about the over and underrated in the world of Christmas, which y'all know is a big part of my life. I'm not talking about Christmas movies year round on Hallmarkies podcast. But today I have with me my friend Greg from OnScreen blog, and we're going to hear some of your suggestions as well. So this will be super fun.
Well, it is a super honor to be on this particular. It's honor every episode, but this particular one, you are the utmost expert in Christmas movies, and I've probably seen a tiny fraction, tiniest fraction of all the Christmas movies you've seen. So I'm gonna give it a whirl to keep up with you. But happy to talk about this.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're having a good holiday season.
Oh yeah, busy as always, but yeah, no, it's been good.
Good. And do you have staples that you have to watch every year?
Yes. Ironically, it's sort of preparing for this episode, I realized I have too many staples and I have not branched out to all the different Christmas movies. I kind of watch the same few every year. My staples are Elf, Muppets Christmas Carol, Miracle on 34th Street. Not It's a Wonderful Life, interestingly, which we can talk about later. I have nothing against it. It's a wonderful movie, but it's just not a movie I feel like I'm one of the few that I've seen a few times, I'm good, kind of thing.
Well, it's not every day that you are emotionally ready for a suicide, movie. It's heavy. It's a heavy movie.
Right. And it's not a movie I'm nowhere near. I could show it to my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, but I'm just like, there's other ones out there that she's more ready for and that she would enjoy, kind of thing. So, that's where that's my Christmas staple repertoire, just for flavor.
Do you have any of the non-traditional films that you like, a Die Hard or a, kind of a thing that you watch every the
Die Hard for sure,
Batman Returns, things like that?
I think only Die Hard. I don't know about this Batman Returns as a Christmas movie, and
it is set at Christmas, so some people do include it. Lethal Weapon, things like that.
Right. My thing is like Die Hard. If you take all the Christmas elements out of it, the lines, the dialogue, all of it, you have a very different movie. It's absolutely. Like that's why to me it's a Christmas movie. Batman Returns. You have the same movie if it's January 10th or whatever. It's like if it's set in the middle of January instead of December.
That's true. I mean, and in the debate, I always say that Die Hard is absolutely a Christmas movie. The only reason he's in LA is because of Christmas. He's trying to reconcile with his wife. It's at a Christmas party. That's what all the.
I mean, so many lines. Now I have a machine gun. It's a totally different line, and it doesn't. I don't think it's as impactful. And the last scene, he's got the gun taped to his back with Christmas paper because it's a Christmas party. That paper laying around, it's just okay. Is it Elf? Is it? No, it's not.
Do you get
Christmassy?
You get into any of the holiday horror, like your Gremlins or something like that?
Gremlins is interesting. I haven't revisited the Gremlins movies in a while. I keep horror to February through October, basically. When it gets to November, I'm like, all right, it's time for different stuff. I need a little bit of a break. I'm the biggest Halloween nut there is, but what keeps horror movies special is you got to take a little bit of a break. Just like golf. It's like for me, it's like you play golf year round. It's just not as fun. But if it's you got to wait for it and you get excited for it again, then it's good. That's how I am with horror.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Now, let's let's go lean negative first. Talk about the
Oh,
overrated, and then we'll end, positive, talk about the underrated.
okay. Okay.
Yes. And it is interesting experience because people have such a closeness to these Christmas movies that when you say, oh, I don't care for it, it's can be quite personal, with their traditions and their, so yeah, it's a walking on tiptoes here,
I'm
but
glad you said that, because that's as an amateur film critic myself. You're a professional. I'm an amateur.
yeah,
Whenever I try and dissect or break down, people get more defensive over Christmas movies than any other genre, I
yeah,
think, because again, most Christmas movies you've watched since you were a kid,
yeah,
and you've got that attachment. I do too. Certain movies,
yeah,
and it's really tough. And the other thing is, like, most Christmas movies aren't trying to be Oscar winners.
right.
There are a few, obviously, some of the classics, that did
Mhm.
contend.
Miracle on
But
34th Street.
sure, right, right. But most of, especially in the last, our generations, they're
Hmm.
just trying to be family
Yeah.
friendly, fun.
Well,
Just
as hard as it is to review films, sometimes holiday films, which is what I do all year round, as hard as that can be, it's even harder to review theater. Because you really
oh
feel
yeah,
like when you review a holiday show, because a lot of times these theaters, they'll do the same show every year after year after year, and it's a tradition. You feel like you're going into their house and being like, oh, I don't really like your tree, like it
right.
feels so real.
I feel like the threshold for reviewing
Sorry.
holiday theater should probably be: are you trying or not? Are you trying? Then yes, you get a good review. If you're not trying, because it's a short run.
It's
It's
hard,
not like a
yeah.
Broadway run where it's going for
Right.
years, and like your review could actually help someone decide
Yeah.
whether they're not. But most people, if they're just to look at Christmas show,
Yeah.
they're probably gonna go anyway. It's just like, are they trying? If
Yeah.
they're just half-assed, just
Yeah.
that they might want to know that.
Well, what do you have as your first overrated? Like you go
Uh,
first.
Okay, let's start with probably the least contentious one of the one your audience probably hate me the least over. I'm gonna go with the Santa Claus, the first one, with Tim Allen.
Okay.
Wait, so we're going overrated, right, or underrated?
Overrated, yeah.
Over. Okay, yes. Oh, that's okay. That's my first overrated one.
Okay.
Um, I just don't. Now I've seen this movie
Yeah.
recently, so
Hmm.
I did not see this as a kid.
Yeah.
I I can't believe this movie did $195 million at the box office. Like
Yeah.
it's just I mean, that just spoke to the power of Tim
Yeah.
Allen and what a huge star he was. I mean, this was his first movie post
Yeah.
or during Home Improvement, I think, and just
Yeah.
how popular he was. Because this is a pretty this isn't much of a script.
As
The
I recall,
premise.
I remember liking the second one a little bit better. I mean, it's probably because I'm a romance person and it's kind of, it's got a romantic angle, but I haven't seen them since high school, so,
Yeah,
or
after
college.
seeing this first one, I have no interest in seeing the second one. So I don't think it's sort of letting Tim Allen cook. If it's not quite to the
Yeah.
level of like Fred Claus existing to have Vince Vaughn just sort of spout off random lines for a couple hours, but it's sort of just letting Tim Allen being Tim Allen. But the premise is kind of good. Like, oh great, random guys with Santa Claus. It's by contract, the Santa Claus, but they don't really stick with that for most of the movie. It's
Yeah.
kind of a typical father, divorced dad, son drama kind of thing. And
Yeah. And
The North Pole is really sorry. The North
yeah,
Pole is
no.
really strange. The elves are very sardonic. They're
Yeah.
not cute. There's no whimsy to it. I don't even think it's that funny. But go
One
ahead.
of my
Yeah.
least favorite tropes in film is the overworked dad who needs to be taught a lesson. And that was extremely popular in the 90s. And probably why I'm not as big a fan of this film. And also for people love Hook. And I'm just like, if I have to spend more time with this annoying kid, and, so yeah, I would agree. And but that's the thing about a lot of those movies from the 90s, family films from the 90s, if you didn't grow up with it, like it's just not the same experience as people who grew up with it. It's the same thing with Hocus Pocus. Like I don't get it. I don't understand it. I
Oh.
don't. Yeah,
Ooh.
I don't.
That. So here's what's funny. That is the rare movie that I saw as an adult that you're supposed to see as kids that I really liked. Because like
Really?
most movie,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
I did not. It did nothing for me.
oh
I just
interesting,
and
yeah.
you go to Disneyland and it is everywhere. And you're just like, what? I don't understand.
Oh, I gotta go to Disneyland because
Eh,
Disney World there's barely any Hocus
oh,
Pocus stuff
really?
in
I
there. I
mean,
think it might be a little bit merch,
yeah,
but yeah, nothing.
everywhere. They even have a fireworks show.
Really. Oh, I have to go to
Yeah,
Disneyland then.
it's
Yeah,
intense. But anyway, there's certain ones. So I can see that.
we'll
I can
save that for
see.
overrated, underrated Halloween movies.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll
yeah,
do it
yeah.
next time. But
Well, there's one that it's because I'm in the world of TV movies. That like I love. Few people could love Dolly Parton more than me, but I love her. She's amazing. She practically got us out of COVID. She paid for the vaccine. I mean, she's amazing. But I cannot endorse her movie Christmas on the Square. It has to be my most overrated. And the fact that it won 2 Emmys, I just can't understand.
what year
It
did this
won
come
for
out?
best TV movie. I'm like, what?
What year did this come out?
2020. Yeah, 2020. And I think
Oh,
everybody just
recently. Oh,
loved
wow.
Dolly that
Oh,
year. She had like again paid for the vaccine. She's
yeah. I think
amazing
that's exactly it. I
because
think you hit. I think you're
the
on the head.
story is terrible. There's this woman who gets her baby taken away and by her mean overbearing father, and then she's just supposed to forgive. And of course, like there's pastor who of course ends up being the baby, that she'd had
Oh,
ripped from her. And it
so who is Dolly Parton in this movie?
you know what? She's like the narrator. It's kind of like a
Oh, she's in there. Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
it's sort of like a Joseph the Technicolor Dreamcoat kind of a sort of a thing. And Treat Williams is in it, and he's good, and he's a good singer, and Kristen Baranski's good
Who
singer,
doesn't love Treat Williams? Yeah,
but
yeah.
the story just you got the big bad man of business who wants to shut down the entire town, evict everybody,
Right.
and
Does he want to convert to like a big strip mall or like a big like ugly behemoth of a
yeah,
corporate building? Okay,
I can't
yeah.
remember exactly, but I think it was condos or something of that nature.
Rachel, you got to have me back. Got to be back in a future episode so you can just like read me the Hallmark Christmas movie and I'll just guess the plot or just
Yeah.
guess like give me the title and
Just
I'll
for
just
the
guess
title.
the plot and see
A
how
lot of
well I
times
do.
the titles don't have anything to do with the story at all.
Right. Yeah,
It's
so
like,
it'd be
what?
fine. I could be way off or I could nail it, in a couple
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah. But I cannot understand how that won. That
So it
won
won 2 Emmys.
Emmy,
So
2 Emmys.
is it the category is best like daytime Christmas movie or just daytime
It
movie?
won Outstanding Television Movie and Outstanding Choreography for Scripted Programming.
Really? Those are
Yeah.
big categories.
I
Oh
know.
my god. Those are categories you air on the show. I thought it might be categories they do at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yeah, right.
and just update the website the
Yeah,
next
it's not
day.
like a lighting or something. Like, no. It's best TV movie. That beat out anything that was on like HBO. That beat out anything on like
I was
AMC
gonna say that'd be Breaking Bad for any category. I'm gonna be really upset. Like I don't.
Yeah, any TV movie that anything on Hallmark, obviously, anything
Yeah.
on just anything. There's just so
Oh,
that
that's
had to
amazing.
be my
Okay.
first pick, even though most people probably haven't heard of it. But
Right.
I love you, Dolly. You're incredible.
Oh yes, thank you for your service. Yeah.
But yeah, that movie. So what is your second overrated?
All right. Your audience is gonna hate me. I'm glad you started with this, so I have a chance to warm them up afterwards.
Okay,
We get
good.
to underrated, but
Yeah.
I'm going with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is
Okay.
overrated.
Uh-huh.
This is a movie I also saw fairly recently. Not a movie I've seen as a kid.
Yeah.
I adore the first National Lampoon's Vacation. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Mhm.
I'll be honest. I think this is an okay Christmas movie. Just as a standalone. Like if I didn't know anything about the Griswolds or anything like that, I
Yeah.
think it's okay. some of the gags are fun. I think I had two really big problems with this movie. One is Clark Griswold's even more of a sociopath in this movie than he was like in Vacation or European Vacation or anything like that. Like I think the genius of him in the first Vacation was, he had a character arc. He started as sort of a regular everyman family man, and then he devolved into this crazy lunatic who who kidnaps
Yeah.
the amusement park guy. Here, he's already there basically. Like he didn't learn anything, which is fine. You don't have to learn anything, but just some of the stuff he does in this movie is really creepy. Especially as
Yeah.
still as a family man.
Yeah.
Lusting after the worker.
The
Um,
lifeguard. Yeah.
right, the lifeguard. Right, it doesn't really fit in the movie, to be honest. Like the Christy Brinkley thing fits. So, like, my general opinion is okay. Christmas movie, an absolutely atrocious National Lampoon's Griswold sequel, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's overrated. Some people just don't care. Some people that I know have only seen Christmas Vacation, so that doesn't
Yeah.
matter much to them. But my other big complaint is just the Griswolds aren't given the family, Beverly D'Angelo, I forget her name, and the kids, they aren't given as much to do in this movie as they are in the other movies. They're
Mm.
just kind of standing around for the most part.
Yeah.
Beverly D'Angelo is sort of the secret weapon of the first movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's like we're talking about underrated, but it didn't really make me laugh that much. Again, I'm watching it older, so it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call it bad, but I do think it's overrated because I think that there's way better Christmas comedies that we'll get to. We'll get to one of them
Well,
in
the
my list.
original one is more R-rated,
Yeah, yeah.
whereas this one's trying to get those family vibes. And I do enjoy it. Part of I do have sort of nostalgia for it. It didn't make my top 10 modern Christmas movie list that we just did on Hallmarkies. But I do have nostalgia for it, partly because my grandma loved it and she would laugh so hard that she couldn't breathe. You're like, breathe, grandma,
And at
breathe.
which
And
parts? Which parts did she laugh
particularly
at?
the two parts that she would lose it was when the squirrel would come out of the Christmas tree.
Uh-huh.
That's a scene. And then the whole anything with the uh grace. They want you to say grace. And then
Yeah,
she
yeah.
gets up and says the Pledge of Allegiance. Like,
That was a funny bit. Right, that was a funny bit. Again, it's not totally unfunny like the Santa Claus. Like Santa Claus to me is just totally unfunny. Like this, there,
yeah,
there are some bits here. Right, the Pledge of Allegiance. Some of the Eddie stuff is funny, although again, I think
it's a little much.
it was way much over.
Yeah.
They overdid it with him. It's part of the reason why. Like, there's even most of the other movies where he's in, they do it better with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit of a tough hang. The bonus thing I saw, I mean, anyone would see it a million
Yeah.
miles coming. Again, a little like Clark just acts like a huge creep in the office too, like just really just like bitter. And again, he's Chevy Chase. He's brilliant at that kind of stuff, and so it did make me chuckle a bit, but it's just a little bit off for a Christmas
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
like again, we're talking about under a Christmas movie, not just like a comedy or anything like that. So.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Well, I have a bunch on my list that I don't know how popular that they are, but one that gets a lot of love that I just don't love. It's The Family Stone.
I haven't seen that one, so
Yeah, so
yeah,
the
yeah. But
Family
I've heard,
Stone,
yeah.
I
Go
can
ahead. Yeah.
understand why certain families really relate to it because it's about this kind of yuppity, really liberal, everyone's trying to impress with how great they are kind of a family. And then you have Sarah Jessica Parker's character coming in and being like, what? And they really do make her out to be like the worst person in the world. And
Mhm.
it's just I have to say that the brand of holiday comedy of like the family shenanigans is usually not for me. I just find it kind of stressful and it's just not that funny to me. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just usually don't love it. That's true here. And I won't spoil it for you. But what happens romantically between two of the brothers and their partners is completely ridiculous and unbelievable. There are some nice moments. There's some nice moments with Diane Keaton, and the cast is great. And it is a believable, I think, family. And so I understand why people love it. It's just not for me.
Can you remind me who are this besides Diane Keaton? Who's in the movie?
So it's got Diane Keaton and Luke Wilson, Sarah Jessica Parker, Dermot Mulroney, Claire Danes, Rachel McAdams.
That's an interesting cast. Oh
yeah,
wow.
Craig T. Nelson. It's a great
Who doesn't love
cast.
Craig T. Nelson? Yeah. I love Craig T. Nelson.
But it's just not for me.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what is your next one?
Okay. Well, this is my number one overrated movie.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure whether I tell a family story related to this or not, but it's A Christmas Story, the 1983 version. I feel is the most overrated story. Again, a movie I did not watch until about 10 years ago. It was in my 30s. Not a movie I grew up with, to be fair. I'm glad you called this overrated and not bad, because I won't do it, because again, movies hit people differently, especially Christmas movies, especially you grew up with it. This is a movie I just truly do not understand the affection people have for and the nostalgia for it. Because I just don't think it's aged that well. Even trying to look at this neutrally as possible. B, I just don't, that what it has to say. I'm going to leave the gags aside for a moment. I'm going to kind of treat this like a critic, but what it has to say about commercialism is not that particularly interesting. And I think a lot of movies have done it better. The third is I can't do the narrator. I can't. The narrator is one of the most annoying narrators in the history of narrators in film. I wouldn't have this guy narrate 1 second of my life. If he narrated my life, I was doing it, I would gouge my ears and go deaf rather than listen to him narrate my life.
Like, it's the author of the book.
Yes, no, I know. No, I get it. I get why they had him do it, and I get what they were trying to do.
Yeah, but you didn't
just like for me, and I just think, not just for me, I just think neutrally, for humankind, you could have done there had to be there had to be 100 narrators that would have done it less annoyingly than that guy. And again, the humor just for me, it's very set. I'm sorry, this is made in '83, but it feels like '70s humor, and it's like very awkward. The big joke about Fragile, I just again, maybe I watched too much Simpsons before I watched this. Again, that would have been my joke by Funny Bone 9. I never cracked a smile once watching this. It's just this movie just doesn't make sense to me. That's my overrated.
I know a lot of people do think it's overrated. The only time I take question with that is people that complain that it's shown on TBS over and over again. You don't have to watch it over and over again. I don't understand that complaint. Like, what? Why do you care? That's weird to me. But I do love it. I think the reason why I love it is because I do think it captures childhood better than almost any other film that I can think of. It captures the imagination, the whimsy of childhood, the way that he thinks about his parents, about his teacher, about his friends, the back and forth between him and his friends. And as somebody who was bullied as a kid, when he beats up Scott Farkas, and I think that Peter Billingsley does an incredible job in that whole scene. It's not known as it's known as a comedy, but I think it actually, for me, maybe rings even more true in sort of these more dramatic parts. When he finally takes on Scott Farkas, and then that moment when he realizes that his mother isn't gonna tell on him, he's like, things were different between me and my mother. And I love that at least someone who was bullied as a kid, that it's always really rang true to me. The relationship that he has between his mom and his dad and all of that. And so I do love it, but I understand. And it does seem like it is one of those ones like Hocus Pocus and the Santa Claus and Sandlot, there's the Goonies. I feel like there's these movies, Hook, that you get really attached to if you get introduced to it at a certain age, and then other people are like, what's that?
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up the Peter Billingsley because I think he's by far the most relatable character, and that's also
Yeah.
my problem with the movie is like none of the other family members are relatable, like, maybe to me or even the
Hmm.
friends. They're all so
Yeah.
exaggerated. It's also a little bit too cartoonish. Like you need to mix in a
Hmm.
couple more straight characters for the cartoonish people to play off of. For me,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and it's just it doesn't have like I know it's trying to say about commercialism, but it doesn't really.
I think
Again,
it's
maybe, I might be the wrong
I
generation
I
for
feel
it,
like
but
it's not really talking about commercialism, but it's more talking about childhood. And
right, right.
that just the experience of being a kid, and you want you want something, and you want something for Christmas, and the big gift, kind of experience. But yeah, I can understand that.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W-Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy.
And me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
Well, I had a couple others. Like most of the rest of the ones on my list like aren't particularly like well regarded, but they do have fan bases. Like The Grinch like had poor critic scores, but I don't care. But it
The
has this.
latest one?
No, the one with Jim Carrey that people love,
Oh,
but I don't.
okay.
But it's hard to say it's overrated because there's never.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
don't care for it. I don't like it.
Yeah. I know more people that don't like it than do like it. So it's interesting that I didn't
Yeah,
know there's a
yeah. There's a
pocket, like a big
hive.
fan base. Okay. Oh, there's
Yeah,
a
there
hive.
really
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And I could be really mean and take down the I'm not the biggest fan of the Rankin Bass specials. The stop motion animated specials like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the
Oh,
Snowman
yeah.
and those ones. They feel a little try hard to me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're trying too hard to be quirky, and you're trying too hard to be um so I find them a little more annoying than I do charming. But
Yeah. I'm
but
kind of out. I don't mind them. I would watch it with my kids and
yeah,
stuff
they're
like
not like
that.
terrible,
But
but
I'm kind of out on what's this stop motion. I'm just out, and that
oh
applies to
really?
current movies, old movie. Yeah, I'm just
I love stop motion,
yeah.
but yeah, the Rankin Bass. Um the the one that, and most people probably wouldn't even consider this a Christmas movie, and you'll probably be upset. But I have to go with the Shane Black Christmas duology of Lethal Weapon and Iron Man 3. And Iron Man 3 is one of those ones that like people that defend it, like they it's one of those ones that it's almost, people think it's so underrated that it's become overrated and I just, and people are like, oh, you just don't like the twist. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like the twist because the twist is stupid. And it's not just that it's stupid, it's that it takes an interesting character and replaces it with another man in a suit that we'd had like time and again face up against Tony. And it was just like, it made the whole movie like way more bland and way more generic just for a cheap gimmick. And
I'm totally 100% with you on this. This is my feelings exactly.
People are like, oh, it's so underrated, it's so underappreciated, it's a great Marvel movie. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not great. And then Lethal Weapon, I have to say, I have not had good luck going back to comedies and action movies of the 80s that are beloved. I didn't like Beverly Hills Cop. I didn't like I'm trying to remember all. I recently watched Slapshot. I didn't like that. Like a bunch of comedies from the 80s that I just haven't enjoyed.
For me, that was Midnight Run. Although I get why Midnight Run is popular and has its hive, but I was just like, I bet I would have liked this in the 80s, but just
Yeah,
didn't. Yeah,
including Lethal Weapon. I was totally underwhelmed by it. I didn't think it was like charming or funny or engaging, and it was just.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe part of it is just it's been copied even by itself so many times that it just starts to kind of lose its. It feels more generic than it would have at the time. But
right.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Shane Black and his writing and his style. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So
I
don't like the way he writes characters. I don't like the way that he writes banter. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I Shane Black overrated. I'm not against it. I'm not sure. I have to really study. I have to really look at his filmography a little bit more. But I'm not against it. I'm not sure I'm with you, but I'm not against it.
And I don't know
if I would gets a lot of hype. He gets a lot of hype for what he's done.
Yeah, it's just, and I wouldn't even necessarily say he's overrated. It's just not for me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's just not my style. And other people I can understand, but yeah, I didn't love The Nice Guys. And I didn't love Iron Man 3. I didn't love Lethal Weapon. Those are only 3 that I've seen from him. And I didn't like any of them. So
I do like Monster Squad. He wrote that. He wrote that one. Yeah, with a few other people. But
yeah. I mean, Richard Donner directed Lethal Weapon.
And
I just found the whole thing unpleasant and not amusing, and I just didn't like it. So, so all right, let's be positive now. Let's talk about underrated.
Okay.
Underrated holiday. You had a harder time with this than the overrated, right?
I found a lot of Christmas movies are properly rated. That was a challenge. I gotta be honest, but I have 3. I have 3. Oh, really 4, but we can, since you gave a couple bonus picks, I'll give a bonus pick after my 3.
Well, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah.
Again,
All right. Let's do. Let's start with a movie I actually just recently saw, Jingle All the Way, starring Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. I believe is a bit underrated.
Yeah.
Jingle All the Way has a hive. Probably every movie has a hive in this age.
No, that is true.
Everyone's got to take one, but it does have its supporters. People saying it does not have a good critic score. It's not generally well regarded. Most people that I've talked to never even bothered to watch it because they just assumed it's a ridiculous Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie, which it pretty much is. But I really, I mean, fundamentally, this movie is all about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, do you enjoy Arnold Schwarzenegger acting crazy and like a lunatic?
Hijinks.
Right. And the answer is, I don't really enjoy him when he's acting crazy. I do enjoy him when he's acting angry. Like when he's getting like really angry at like a small kid who like took away his bouncing ball. Like the part where he's crawling through the playhouse in the mall, like chasing after the kid who got the bouncing ball that is like a raffle ticket to getting the big toy. I'm forgetting the toy's name. But
what's it called?
Photon Man,
no,
I'm sorry to the hive who's watching this.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
I literally watched it like 3 days ago, so I apologize. I'm butchering it already, but yeah, no, but just they had hijinks like that just really made me giggle, and my daughter really enjoyed it too. And there's like Phil Hartman's pretty good at it, like as a real creepy creep, which is a role designed for him pretty much because he can do that type of role really well as the creepy neighbor who's more not so subtly hitting on probably all the women in the neighborhood. And Sinbad, I thought he was gonna be a little bit better because I'm actually generally a fan of his. I thought he played it down a little bit, but he had some moments too. But I thought this movie had a better take on commercialism than I'd seen, generally speaking. My daughter, during the scene where they're all like just mobbing the toy store looking for the toy and like things are being knocked over, and she goes to me, it's like that doesn't happen, like that never happened, did it? And I'm like,
oh yeah,
not necessarily like, let's talk about
toys.
Yeah, but definitely over TVs at Walmart 10 years ago.
Let's talk about Cabbage Patch dolls.
Right. And I'm like, I am sorry to
Tickle
say,
me Elmo.
Right, like thank you online shopping so that people just don't go crazy about this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
People got injured. I think I'm pretty sure a person died. In the last 10 years. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is pretty accurate. This is the documentary part of Jingle All the Way. But it has like, I thought the really clever part was like, the Christmas Eve parade in town. I don't know who does Christmas Eve parades, what they did, but they're all featuring toys, of different genres and stuff. It's not Santa Claus, it's not Rudolph
Yeah.
and the Reindeer, it's all toys. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, toys is a big part of Christmas, unfortunately and unfortunately so, and
Yeah.
their overall messaging, we've seen a bunch of movies about value, family value, all that, but just how it really sort of put a spun a
Mhm.
line in a pretty good way, an effective way, especially for a kid. Just
Yeah.
how bad commercialism is for Christmas.
It's
That was really
Turbo
cool.
Man.
Turbo Man. Thank you.
Turbo Man. That's what it is.
Photon Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Hey,
Well,
I did love. Sorry. One other thing I really enjoyed that movie was how they made fun of the sidekicks of Turbo Man. Like, oh, Turbo Man's all out, but here's a sidekick. We got hundreds of these. And I thought that tickled my funny bone really well, even as a 40-year-old.
Yeah. Well, my first underrated, I had a number that I could have picked, but one, critics tend to be super tough on romantic comedies, and there's very few that have high scores on Rotten Tomatoes, no matter how well crafted they might be. And one that I really love is called Last Holiday. And this stars Queen Latifah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Queen Latifah and LL Cool J is in it. And she plays this woman who is kind of just putting off happiness. She hates her job. LL Cool J is her boss, but she hates her job and what she's doing. She loves to cook, but she makes these big fancy meals, and then she eats a lean cuisine and feeds them to the neighbor kids. And because she doesn't want to gain weight, and she's just not like living a kind of a full life. And she goes to the doctors, and the doctor tells her that she only has like a month to live. And it turns out, I guess spoiler, but turns out that she got the wrong results or whatever, and so there's a happy ending. But she finds this out, and so she's like, you know what, I'm gonna live my life. So she cashes out her 401k. And she goes to Switzerland, and she'd always wanted to meet this particular chef that's in Switzerland. And she goes to Switzerland, and she lives the high life for a month. She gets to work with the chef, and she stays in this fancy place and whatever. And not only does it have something to say about life and not putting off happiness. And it's a cute it has a little cute romance element, but it also has something to say about the way that she's treated as this perceived as wealthy Black woman. And there's a congressman there, and he's very like, what, about her. So I think it has some light kind of social commentary. Which is, I think, interesting and well done. And I just can't for the life of me understand how this could have a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, that half of critics don't recommend it, because I just think it's charming and it's got those Christmas vibes, and it has something to say about life and how we live. And so I really love it. I think it's great.
Oh, I'm gonna add that to my binge list, my Christmas movie binge list.
Yeah. I think you'd like it. I really do.
Okay.
What is your next pick?
Okay. I'm excited to discuss this movie. I really hope you've seen this.
Okay.
I'm going with The Family Man as my second underrated movie. I really this is one of my favorite Nick Cage performances. Especially for like the first 30 minutes or so, when he gets to be an obnoxious Wall Street, titan. And he makes everybody work till 7:00 on Christmas Eve, something like that. He's working on this big deal, and then an angel shows up after he thwarts a robbery and says, "We're going to show you the life you would have lived if you turned down, chasing the money and married your high school sweetheart, or the person you knew in high school." So it's sort of like it's an inverted "It's a Wonderful Life" kind of story, but you get to see Nick Cage first of all act cocky and arrogant, Wall Street. Awesome. And then you get to see him react to going from being this super rich Wall Street guy to being a man with 2 kids and a dog who's living the life of a schmo, I should say. And he gets to act all crazy. What? He's wonderful at that. He's just terrific, and I don't think you need to be a Nicolas Cage stan like I am to appreciate some of the comedy he's doing. But it's also a pretty sweet movie. Like Tia Leone's really good as his wife. There's some really kind of good tender moments in it. I think, as you know, Rachel, like a lot of good rom-coms and stories like this, they start low and then they peak, when the couple's really getting along, and then there's another dip when something happens and they break up or almost break up and then they come back up. That second dip is really pretty affecting. I remember watching it the first time, like, oh, I don't know how this is going to end. Because, like, it's clear he never really learned the lesson. Like, you think he learned the lesson, like, oh, value, love and value all that. But then he never valued it in the first place because after living life in, I think it's New Jersey, he tries to just move the family back to New York and, like, we can do whatever we want. I can be Wall Street again. And just, like, it's this close to the end of the movie and he's learned nothing from the previous hour. Right. Like, a lot of movies don't do it quite like that. It's easy to make a fatal mistake or they relapse or something like that. But I thought that was a really effective sort of final dip before they go to the really good close. I choose you, and the I don't know if the famous line. It's famous for me.
The only hard part about that movie is just that because it's this fake alternate reality, it makes the ending hard because he's not with her in reality. So, so making it kind of end in a satisfying way is a little bit hard. And Hallmark has tried to copy this movie like a million times, like every year.
I bet.
And I highly recommend one that you should watch called Kiss Before Christmas. Very good movie. And it's one of my favorite Hallmark movies of recent memory. And it stars James Denton and Terry Hatcher, who are just pros and great together, great chemistry. They worked together in the past. Anyway, he plays, it's kind of a similar thing, except for he's instead of being the big businessman, he's like the kind of the sad sack who's always taken advantage of and has chosen the good path all along the way. And one day he is just getting frustrated and he wishes that he hadn't done that and that he had played the corporate game and everything. And so he wakes up and his family's gone but he's got the fancy house and the whatever. And what I think one of the things I thought was so brilliant. So now he has to get his family back. And one of the things I thought was really brilliant is they have his two kids be adopted. So in this alternate reality, he sees his kids with other parents.
Oh, wow.
Which that was so smart.
Right.
Yeah. And so like I think it's more compelling than The Family Man because it's about finding your family again versus this imaginary family.
Creating it.
You know what I'm saying? But I do like The Family Man. I do think it's it's a classic Hallmark kind of story of sort of the bad man of business that gets reformed and gets
well, and right. And it's like you
business
take a classic plot trope, but you fill it with really fun and entertaining actors.
In the world of Hallmark, business is bad. Business is evil.
Right. Right. How dare you? What I do like to your point about the end of The Family Man 2 was they don't end with a kiss. She's just like, all right, I'll have coffee with you. And then the fade away is just them having coffee, like at a dark, snowy airport, and it is I mean, some may say, oh, it's not really a Christmas movie. It's like, well, if this isn't, then neither is It's a Wonderful Life, because It's a Wonderful Life, there's not much Christmas in that movie too, but they both deal with sort of the same thing. So it's same themes.
It's definitely a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Something doesn't actually have to have Santa in it to be a Christmas movie. Like, what?
Right.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hearty, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Well, my next underrated is one I know a lot of people, it's just a deal breaker because they hate the animation, and I can understand that. It's the Christmas Carol from 2009, the Robert Zemeckis Christmas Carol.
The Jim Carrey,
yeah. And I understand that kind of the Hidden Valley, whatever. For whatever reason, I'm able to kind of adjust to it, and it's fine for me. And the thing I love about this particular version of Christmas Carol, because I've seen, I think, every version of Christmas Carol, and this one, I think what I like is it is incredibly accurate to the book. It includes things that aren't in any other version. Like when Scrooge is flying over London with Present, and he asks, about the people that are breaking the Sabbath, and why is that so much easier to forgive than what he does. And he goes and sees the sailor and on the lighthouse, and celebrating Christmas by himself. And he sees that, like, just things in the book that are just never in these versions, hardly ever. So I kind of like it for that. It's sort of fun. I also appreciate the fact that they do not, I can appreciate a Scrooge with like a little bit of a wink, kind of sarcasm. He's really not that bad. No, like Jim Carrey plays him, which maybe is surprising, plays him completely despicable. I mean, it is he is just terrible.
No, he is.
And so I like it. I think that I like Gary Oldman, as Cratchit. They go a little crazy with the whole like flying through the air, because I think they were like obsessed with the 3D and stuff, and there's some antics that are a little much, but I like it.
Yeah, the actual scenes itself, like every adaptation does it a little differently with the ghosts. I remember the first Ghost in particular being really weird, and it was a little unsettling. Like, I don't know if it's true to the book or not. Like, just for movie purposes, it's just a little distracting.
I think it's like separated from the head is kind of separated from the body.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, but I agree. Carrey did a pretty convincing Scrooge. I mean, it's not. He's certainly not at the bottom of any Ebenezer Scrooge list I would make for best adaptations.
Yeah. So, what's your last pick?
Okay.
Underrated.
I'm cheating a little bit. I apologize, but there's a reason. I'm going with Miracle on 34th Street, the first one, and it's generally regarded. I'm going to explain why I'm calling it underrated, because it's generally regarded as one of the top 5 Christmas movies of all time. However, in my opinion, it should be universally regarded as the single best Christmas movie of all time. Better than It's a Wonderful Life. I think It's a Wonderful Life. It's a wonderful film. I do think Miracle on 34th Street is a definitive Christmas movie. It is, for a movie made in 1947. It's aged, but it hasn't aged as badly as one would think for a movie like that. I think it intersects all the different themes of Christmas really well, like the commercialism of Christmas, the Santa Claus aspect of it. You get Kris Kringle obviously in it. It's even a pretty good courtroom movie, in so far. I believe the actor who played Kris Kringle was nominated for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. He won. Oh, right. He won. So he gets some good performances. Natalie Wood is like certainly one of the best child performances I think you'll see in a movie, and it's pretty affecting because both Natalie Wood and the mom, I would say, have some pretty convincing character arcs as far as where they started and then where they finished. The what we'll call it, the male saviorism aspect of the movie is probably the one that's aged the worst of it. Like, the I forget his name. I'm so bad with names, but George, I think is his name. The boyfriend who eventually becomes a boyfriend coming in, white horse to save.
They have such good chemistry, though. I love them.
They do, but like, there's not a single thing wrong with him. Like, he's gonna teach her the spirit of Christmas. Male saviorism, I think, is a thing, maybe. But
I guess fair.
But it's still a wonderfully affecting movie. It says all the right notes. The performances are good. It's still the best version of it. I've seen, I don't think the later version with Attenborough is that bad, but it's but this one's the classic one, and it still holds up. Even my 9-year-old daughter who hates any movie made before 1995 watched this movie. She's pretty interested by it. I also love the other thing. The big thing I love how the movie does, especially with the courtroom stuff, is sort of one of the themes of the movie. I think is how uh, the right thing happens for wrong reasons, right? Like in terms of the courtroom, like Macy supports Chris Kringle, but only because of his bottom line would be affected by it, even though he's sort of portrayed in a good way. But like, it's a very cynical look at it. Like, should we really be looking at Macy as a hero because all he's thinking about is bottom line? Like, if it helped his bottom line to deny that Chris Kringle is Santa Claus, he would have done it.
Right.
But also the judge, in terms of just explores an interesting way sort of the fallacy of publicly elected or democratically elected judges, and just like sometimes they'll follow the whims of the public. Still happens today. There's a great John Oliver episode about that, about just how there's pros and cons to any system of
manipulated.
But, just how easily it can be. But again, like the judge, he was counseled like, look, you can't deny Santa Claus. Think of the election. You really want to be those the guy?
Yeah.
But that's life sometimes. It's not, people don't do things for the right reasons all the time, but you can still get a good outcome.
Yeah.
So it's still an interesting movie all these years later, and I really think it's the single best Christmas movie we have.
It's a great movie for sure. Well, I'm just going to rattle off some honorable mentions real quick.
Yeah.
So I have While You Were Sleeping as an honorable mention. I think it's a perfect film. And I think Christmas is actually pretty significant to the story. And I absolutely love it. A movie called Grand Illusion. This is like a Criterion Collection. The whole third act of it is all these soldiers and this German woman that are during World War I that are celebrating. They end up celebrating Christmas together. One of them's Jewish. It's a beautiful movie. It's great. Of all the Rankin Bass movies, the one that I like the best is The Year Without Santa Claus. It has the best bops. It's the best story. It's the best one.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like you usually hear that around. Another little hidden gem is called is Elf Buddy's Musical Christmas, and it's a stop motion. So I don't, maybe you wouldn't like it, but it's a stop motion adaptation of Elf. And it's got, I think the songs that they have in the Elf stage musical, I think, are in this, and it's charming, it's sweet, and then there's also a movie called The Man Who Invented Christmas that I think kind of went under the radar that I enjoyed about Charles Dickens and writing Christmas Carol, and Christopher Plummer plays Scrooge. All the characters kind of come alive as he's writing, and it's fun. But the one that, again, I'm just thinking a lot of rom-coms, but the one I'd pick is a movie from 2021 that was on Netflix. And usually those are terrible, but it is called Single All the Way. And this was just such a wonderful film that I
love the title.
Yeah. And so many of the stories of so many LGBTQ stories are about the trauma of coming out, which is totally valid. And, we need those. But this was just nice because it was a story about love and acceptance and family, and it wasn't steeped in trauma. It was nice to just have a love story that was just joyful. And it's got such a great cast. The leads, one of the leads, Michael Urie, but Luke McFarlane's in this. If you liked him in Bros, he's in this. Jennifer Coolidge plays the Cookie Aunt, and she's absolutely hilarious as always. Kathy Najimy plays the mom, and she's wonderful and lovely. Jennifer Robertson, Barry Bostwick. I mean, great cast. And it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's romantic, and it is about a family that truly loves their son, and whether he's straight or gay, it doesn't matter. They just want him to be happy. And maybe some people, think, oh, that's not realistic. I don't know, but I know a lot of really happy families, and it was just nice for a Christmas movie to be about joy.
Yeah.
And I think that same year or the year before, it had The Happiest Season, which was also an LGBTQ family story, which wasn't terrible, but the way that it was a coming out story, and the way that they treat the Kristen Stewart character in that movie was just like abhorrent. It was absolutely terrible, and it was so unpleasant. And I was just like, I much prefer. I wish that this had gotten, I think because it was on Netflix, it probably just kind of got ignored, but I love it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that everybody should watch it. It's just such a happy, wonderful movie.
That's what I think we should have in Christmas movies. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. People want bad Santa movies, and other ones take more cynical view. Fine, whatever. It's a free country, but Christmas movies to me just you got to at least end with joy, and really, because what other movie genre? All the other genres you could be as bleak as you want, and that's fine. There's some great entertainment out there that way, but
and can we just have both? Let's have both.
Right.
Let's tell all the stories. I mean, I think everybody deserves to have sweet love stories that they can watch.
Yeah.
So
I had one honorable mention. Yeah, I had one honorable mention. I just wanted to highlight. I wanted to get your take on it too, because you're you're a rom-com expert. The Holiday. With
yeah, I like The Holiday.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I do enjoy it. I like the Kate Winslet part a lot better than the Cameron Diaz part.
Yes, agree.
But it's fun. I enjoy it. I
have to Winslet. Well, let's start here. Winslet and Jack Black is one of the strangest romantic couples in the history of rom-coms. And I know they're not that. Diaz and Jude Law are way more romantic than those two are, but they do end with being together. And I'm like, this makes no I could buy. I could buy Jack Black and Cameron Diaz as a couple.
But he can be quite charming now. Like that whole scene in Blockbuster, like when he's talking about all the scores and stuff. Like he is quite charming. But you don't really feel the chemistry. But I just love everything between Kate Winslet and the old man. And when he's talking to her about you are the supporting character in your own life. and that is, as a rom-com fan, that is such a brilliant statement.
There's some deep stuff in there. It's not necessarily said in a deep way, but there's some interesting dialogue in here that makes you think. And all four of again, overall, the cast is a little bit strange. Like Diaz, Jude Law, Black. That is an eclectic cast. Not as eclectic as Family Stone, that cast you just read me, but we're up there. I mean, especially as high profile stars these are.
Like I wouldn't say it's either overrated or underrated. To me, it's just like it's properly rated.
It's a movie where
but I like it.
It is. I would say it is a movie you could give to a general audience who may not be I would say a rom-com fan. It's just gonna be it's another one.
Yeah.
But someone who doesn't really like the genre, you can show it to be like, you won't have a bad time. You won't have it. You'll walk.
It is kind of a gateway rom-com. And I think that Last Holiday could be a gateway rom-com.
Yeah.
Because it's really, I mean, it's barely a rom-com. I mean, most of the movie is he's not even there. So LL Cool J is just there at the very beginning and the very end. So it's a good gateway. Maybe we should do it. Maybe I do an episode someday on gateway rom-coms.
Yeah, right. That would be good.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I'll listen. Yeah.
Well, if you are listening, let us know what your over and underrated holiday films are. No judgment. You can put it in the comments, and we'd love to hear. But
trust me, I just picked two of the most favored Christmas movies of all time as overrated. You can't be more hated than I am right now. So go ahead, let them rip.
Yeah, so let's the Marvel fans will come after me. but please. I love Dolly Parton. Please don't come after me, Dolly Hive, because I don't need that in my life. But if people want to follow you, how can they do that?
Sure. So I tweet about movies at OnScreen blog, and you can follow our theater takes at OnStage blog, and that's where my partner Chris Peterson does. Business partner Chris Peterson does the tweeting for
great.
there.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And also make sure you're following everything on Hallmarkies podcast. We're covering all the holiday films for 2023. So please take a look at that. It's a lot of fun. We have interviews and we have our ranking episodes. Like we did an episode, our top 12 classics and our top 12 modern Christmas movies. So it's a lot of fun. Check it out. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group, which is the best way you can support me and all that I do. And I really appreciate that. And we have monthly watch alongs and Q&As with stars and writers and mostly Hallmark stuff, because that's where my connections are, but it's a lot of fun. And so check that out. And then also have the merch store where you can get all kinds of fun holiday designs. So take a look at that. And thanks so much. This was a blast, and wish you very, very Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.